Welcome to the Creative Cauldron, the show that mixes together media arts professionals, instructors, and students at Schoolcraft College to take your work to the next level. I'm Jeremy Salo, the host of the Creative Cauldron, also faculty here at Schoolcraft College in Media Arts. And today's guest is the owner of videographer of Kim Stricker Productions. He's an award-winning underwater videographer. He's been in the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Kim Stricker delivers informative fishing content and captivating visuals from a one-of-a-kind underwater perspective. His show, Hook and Look, aired 14 seasons on television networks such as the Outdoor Channel, World Fishing Network, and Wired to Fish. Now, today, Kim, I want to talk about different career paths that you've had over the years, from your early piano bar performing days to professional bass fishing, broadcast TV producing, and media content creator. And hopefully this is going to help inspire you folks to take something that you're passionate about and turn it into a marketable, profitable, and fun career. So, Kim, in the early days, you started playing piano at bars, singing and playing tunes to crowds of folks. Being a musician, that's a whole performance career in its own right. Now, when did you decide, you know what, I want to get into professional bass fishing?
I remember laying on the carpet in front of the TV watching the Bassmaster Classic, and this was 1980.
Okay. And
Bo Dowden won that classic. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to fish the classic. I'm going to do that. I want to do that. And it's a big goal to qualify just to be there.
Right.
And I started my first pro tournament in 1982. Ended up fishing professionally the tour for 27 years.
Wow.
It took me to the year 2000 to qualify for the Classic. But in 1994, I helped bring Bassmaster to the state of Michigan for the first time, to Lake St. Clair. And I took the tournament director around to all the chambers of commerce, and we set up the event. And all the biggest names in bass fishing, the Roland Martins, the list goes on. And I was fortunate enough to win that event. And that was my day in the sunshine that kind of boosted me up, boosted my career. And it was not long after that Chevy picked me up, and I was on the Chevy Pro staff for 16 years.
Wow.
And that enabled me to continue it.
So that tournament that you're referring to, now that was the top 100 fishermen that...
It was the top 100 in the world of bass fishing.
Right. And this tournament, for those of you who don't know, this is like the NBA of, bass fishing. And then in that tournament, and then one of the Michael Jordan of bass fishing is Kevin VanDam.
Kevin
VanDam. And he was in that contest. And you beat him for that one. So that's wow, to know that you were able to compete. And you're friends with Kevin VanDam, and he's been a part of your career.
I'll see him tomorrow.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, his brother's company, DNR Sports, is having their annual open house. So a bunch of us guys go up there.
Excellent.
Yep.
So the bass fishing, it's kind of like NASCAR, I guess, right? Where you have all the sponsors, logos, and they're a big part of you being able to do this activity, right? It's
right.
Getting sponsors and giving them some airtime, per se, right?
And again, doing those seminars at sports shows for them and such, and representing them. Mm-hmm. And again, I was fortunate to be able to do it all those years. The entry fees aren't cheap. Today it's
just to get in.
Yeah,
right.
Just to get in. But the top 100, you had to qualify to get there, just like you have to do to qualify for the Classic. Mm-hmm. But doing that, it was a great experience. I was able to travel the country. My my family, my kids. My wife and I would pack up the diapers and the porta crib and hit the trail. I remember my kids trick-or-treating at Lake Okeechobee.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of good memories.
So yeah, networking is huge in media, and then of course with your professional bass fishing, and I can never stress enough to my students how important that is. And so I was an ambassador for scuba diving through a local dive shop, Aquatic Adventures, and I was taking photographs and videos for them, doing promotions and so on. And then you needed a new videographer for your show, Hook and Look, which we can talk about next. But she introduced us to each other, and then we were able to. I was with you for 2 seasons of the show, doing different episodes all over the country. That was really awesome, and
Good times.
Is there anything you'd like to add about networking and how it's similar, perhaps, to broadcasting, to getting sponsors and the professional bass circuit, and just to help people realize how important it is to do that networking? Because there's one thing to do the things, there's another thing to have that community relationship, and not just liking people's stuff. But,
I don't care what you do, whether it's the fishing, whether it's the production of the show and stuff. It's a business, and it's all about sales. It's all about promotion, and you need to understand that. And the networking helps you with all that, of course. And as far as adding to it, it's what makes the world go around. You've got to do it. You mentioned how you became my videographer. Prior to that, my son did the show with me for 9 years, and he now works at Channel 7 News.
Right.
So I'm texting him every morning to see what's up there.
Right.
But it was good to have somebody like you that took over. We had some good times.
Yeah, definitely. Now we're talking about the show Hook and Look, and I think we have some footage from the show too.
Good.
And we can start maybe taking a look at some footage from the show and talk about it a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit about Hook and Look. How did it come about, Hook and Look?
Well, like I mentioned before, we decided, to try to produce a television show. But to get on the air, again, it takes money.
Right.
And I had to stick my neck way out there. But my show, I wouldn't have produced a show or started a show if it was just fishing. There's a lot of fishing shows. But we had something unique, and to incorporate underwater videography and teach from an underwater perspective, from the bass eyes view, and it was unique. And those that have had shows for 20 years told me, they said, this is, you've got something special here. Roland Martin, I remember him saying it to me. And he says, we thought that, here we go. We're looking at some footage.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. Let's bring that up first.
Yeah, look at that. I know that guy.
Exploring lakes, rivers, and reservoirs across the country with an unyielding goal to enlighten viewers from a fisheye perspective. Come along and we'll investigate the habitat. Much more than a fishing show, this is an eye-opening aquatic experience. Welcome to Kim Stricker's Hook and Look, Season 14.
Here we have Jeremy Salo. He's filming for Hook and Look. Jeremy, say hello.
How's it going?
He normally doesn't get this opportunity to be in front of the camera.
I have a voice.
We went down here.
All right, yeah, those were some fun times there.
Definitely. That was Lake Minnetonka, the one where we filmed together there.
Excellent. So clearly you love what you do. From watching the show, the viewers can see that you love it. So for those that don't know, is it easy to produce a show like this, Kim?
It's funny you say that. The show was unique, and my first guest, Tom Mann Jr., said to me, he said, this is really cool, but how come nobody else has done it? And at the end of the show, he said to me, he said, now I understand how much work. I mean, it's work just doing a fishing show, but doing a fishing show and then scuba diving, doing the underwater work, and then incorporating it all. When I would produce my show, I would look first at my underwater and what could I teach the fishermen from that underwater perspective? Probably at first it was more me and Danny with underwater communications, all excited. Look at that bass, this and that. But that's not the important part. The important part, look at that bass. But what is he telling you? How is he positioning? What's he feeding on? What depth is he? What structure? And we were able to show that, and it was unique, but it's a lot of work. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But when you have a passion for something, you don't work a day in your life, and that's.
Right.
I've been very, very, very fortunate to be able to do what I love to do, and still doing it.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw a segment that you recently did on your social media, and it was from back in the earlier days, and you had some old logs on paper. And then you were talking about, different conditions and baits and locations, and then what the catches were, and you're able to recognize patterns and things like that, right?
I was 14 years old.
Wow.
Recording those. And, I did that video, and my sister said to me, she said, she was 10 years older than I. Mm-hmm. She says, Kim, I never realized you did all those things and kept logs and that's what it takes to get good at it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
exactly, yeah. So and I was impressed about that, and you have to put that much attention and research into anything if you want to be good at it. I mean, it's fun to go out and fish, and you don't know what you're going to get. It's, kind of part of the mystery, like gambling. But if you're going to do it professionally in a tournament and you have sponsors, there's a lot of pressure there, and you're going to do a TV show. You want to turn it more into a science. And then that's basically what you did.
It is a science.
Turned it into a science.
It's a lot more than just drowning a worm. People think you're out there just, oh, yeah. Just, right. There's a lot of work to it. And physical work. Mm-hmm. The casting and up and down in the boat and this and that, but we like to dive too.
Oh yeah, excellent.
I'm at that point where I love to catch big fish but to catch a big fish striking a lure, it means more to me because not that many get that shot. And it sells product. That's what I'm doing now is. Creating social media content and shooting underwater content for different lure manufacturers.
Okay.
And I contracted through GSM Outdoors, which owns like a dozen fishing brands.
Right.
And
so you're talking about your next part of your career. If we kind of segment things, I know life isn't always very linear, but people like to think about it in linear fashion. So.
You've got to reinvent yourself all the time.
Right.
My dad always said there's nothing more certain than change, and that's so true. And if you want to succeed, you need to roll with the punches and reinvent and reinvent yourself,
Mm-hmm. So you saw the changes in technology and, we're talking about social media, YouTube, TikTok, all that sort of thing. And it just opened things up for people versus having to go through these broadcasters and so on. It completely changed the landscape, right?
Well, if we go back to my television show, when the show ended, sponsors going out of business, sponsors getting bought out, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. At that time, I realized, talking to other sponsors, they say, "Kim, we love your show and stuff, but we're pulling away from linear TV. We're moving more towards streaming and social media, YouTube." And that's the route I ended up, instead of quitting, I thought, what the heck, I can do that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm fortunate to be involved with GSM Outdoors. And that keeps me busy, and I love it.
Yeah. So what do you think is different from the national broadcasting to the kind of media you're doing now?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that are different. From a production standpoint, you're producing a much shorter content, and it's all content. The younger crowd, in my opinion, and it kind of shows, it's a little shorter of attention span. When you stroll and you look at scrolling through here and there, it's all quick stuff, and that's what I'm producing today. I consider anything over 90 seconds as getting too long.
Yeah.
Where I used to have to produce 19 minutes for a half-hour television show.
Wow.
But you don't put filler in there. You get right to the point, mm-hmm. and you want to grab their attention so they watch the whole video. But mm-hmm. It's definitely been a learning curve, especially for an old guy like me.
Right.
But I've learned it pretty good as far as I can see, mm-hmm. and I'm learning what works and what doesn't work so good.
Yeah.
But still, I'd say I'm doing TikTok even, and Instagram. And
are you doing the crazy dances and stuff on TikTok too? Or?
No, we're not doing that.
No, that's good. Yeah, you can leave that to someone else.
That's right.
That's right. So what do you see similar from the broadcast days and producing shows for doing the content for social media and stuff like that?
I mean, my content is similar. Again, you've got to make any money. Obviously, you've got to be able to sell product, or it's the same thing. It's just on a quicker level to me. There's a lot more people that can do it. Production today is a lot easier, with the technology we have for younger people to produce. That's, I don't know if that's a fault or something good on my end, is, I'm not just sticking a GoPro out there and filming stuff, but that sells. I mean, people do well, just tons of followers doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm used to producing, not only longer, but I sit down and I write scripts and try to get the content and all that stuff together. So I'm kind of doing the exact same thing, but in a more condensed form.
Oh, okay, great. So you're still writing scripts. There's a substance to it before you hit record. It's not just.
I'm not a to stand out in the boat and just talk. I like to give it some thought. Mm-hmm. And what's the best way can I present this again to teach, mm-hmm. instead of floundering around. Oh, that's pretty face.
Right. Right.
But yes, I am. I'm doing the same exact thing, the same exact way I did before, mm-hmm. just in vertical. Right. Instead of full 1080.
Resolution, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you started doing professional bass fishing, and then you got into doing the underwater TV show, or was they always at the same time? Because we kind of talked about it. It was kind of like at the same time.
This is the professional fishing. Mm-hmm. went on for 27 years. During that, I did the seminars, and then keep in mind, I owned a paint manufacturing and ran a paint company at the same time.
Right.
Fortunately, very, very, very fortunate that I had good people that worked for me.
Okay.
But again, I used my fishing to take customers and stuff. But all that was going on at the same time as I did the seminars, worked up to the DVDs, and then the television show started 2 years before the buyout on my company, and we went full blast with the show. And then when the show came down, that's when I started pushing more into the social media and the YouTube. In hindsight, I wish I would have started the social media years prior. I did, but not to the level I needed to do it.
Right.
But again, it was me and my son producing the show, and you can only do so much.
Right.
It's not
concentrate on.
right. But we made the money from it. We didn't have to pay anybody else.
Yeah, that's nice too. And doing the underwater stuff, being there in person and seeing it, you know, as a scuba diver and as someone that's photographed obviously underwater and shot videos, you learn a lot. And how much of your fishing above the water changed, do you think, from looking over?
Well, I wish I knew then
Right.
what I know now. But
Right. Oh.
I've spent a lot of time in the water and I've learned a ton. And I've tried to share that with all the viewers. A lot can be learned by actually being down there and understanding them. But you know, it just made me think that, you know, talk about filming the lures and that kind of stuff. You know, I know lures better than anyone, I guess. I get to see them in the wild, not in a swimming pool.
Right.
I know exactly how they work and how the fish relate to them and such. But to get a guy to film lures and fish, they have to understand. You know, if you're doing bass fishing lures, you need to know bass fishing. You need to know what that lure is supposed to do. You also need to know what you look for in the habitat. Right. And you know, just getting a guy off the street to go down there and shoot some video, really don't understand what to look for. That's my niche, I guess. Mm-hmm.
So we're running out of time, Kim, but maybe there's one exciting or interesting situation that you recall that you want to share where you learned something from looking at the underwater footage or just being there, and then that really changed your presentation, your game, the way that you were able to fish above the water. And there's so many things. I mean,
there's so many. I'm sitting here thinking.
Right.
Gosh,
there's just so many things, but there's just an interesting story you want to share. And of course, folks can go and look at your work.
Number one is, in fact, I did a show with Kevin VanDam.
Okay.
And he highlighted this because he didn't realize either. He says, if there's anything I learned from what you just did, there's a lot more fish down there than you think there are. They may not be reacting like you would like, but there's a lot more fish. You know, I'm going back probably 10 years. We did that episode. Today, you've got forward-facing sonar that guys can see how many fish are out there now,
yeah.
and cast to them. You know, it's become kind of a video game today. You know.
Yeah.
I'm glad I fished the tour when I did.
Right.
Forward-facing sonar is a fabulous technology. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But
kind of cheating.
no, I wouldn't say that. It's a different game.
Different game.
You know, it's a big controversy today, and you know, being old school the way I am, I would rather see it old school game and then another circuit or something for the new technology.
Right.
These young kids that know technology and really learn that stuff, kicking butt
Right.
with forward-facing sonar. But is that going to be the game of the future? Right now it looks like it, but I think that from a tournament standpoint, it should be a separate thing. But again, it's I'm an old guy,
Yeah.
old school.
It reminds me of how they have like the muzzle loader competitions.
Yeah,
and
there
then
you go. Yeah,
They got the
yeah.
You're the muzzle
we're
loader
the
pro.
muzzle loaders. That's a good way to put it.
Well, Kim, it was great having you on the show,
My
and there's
pleasure.
a lot of
Thank
ways that folks can come and take a look at your content and then learn more. I mean, you list during Hook and Look, and I'm not sure about the social media if you have as much time, but I know from working on the show and watching the shows, I mean, you let the viewer see you use this type of line, you use this lure, this rod, this reel. Like, it's really informative, and it gives people a lot of suggestions of where to go and when to go. So where would be the best ways you suggest folks to take a look at that stuff?
Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, follow me on TikTok, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. My longer form stuff, I go to YouTube, but every week I'm posting things with new products for the companies I'm working for. If I can mention them, Yamamoto, Big Bite Baits, Bill Lewis, Buckeye, the list goes on, all name brand great stuff. And every year they're coming out with new stuff, and I get all that content for them.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, thanks for coming, Kim.
Thank you, Joe.
And we'll see you folks on the next Creative Cauldron.